side of the road where the harbor is. You cannot see the water behind the buildings, but on the side on my left here, these buildings along this stretch are not so interesting looking until we come up to about this point, and then we start to get some nice British colonial buildings, because we're coming into the heart of the old British colonial administration area. And it's a really neat thing about Georgetown. You have the British colonial area, Little India, the old Chinese shop house area. Of course, these days we're told that the European countries came into different parts of the world and set up colonies and took lots of stuff and made people work for them, and it was all terrible. And I'm sure there were terrible things, but what's not mentioned is all the infrastructure that was set up. Not to make excuses or anything like that, okay? It's just to look at things in a balanced way. And if you travel and you have an open mind and you really have open eyes, like you can see there's a lot of beautiful architecture in the places where there used to be European colonies, French, British, whatever, every place where there were colonies. Like I say, not to excuse it, I'm not into imperialism, but just to keep a bit of balance to it. The old train line systems and a lot of these places, of course, were set up in those ways, and water systems and drainage systems and a lot of stuff, really, all kinds of stuff. So it's quite interesting, the legacy and also the cultural influence that you can see still in a lot of former colonies. And it's a bit sad that a lot of the colonial buildings in these types of countries are not all and not always well looked after. And why is it like that? Maybe some people in power have a kind of a negative thinking about the origin of these types of buildings. I don't know. I can say in Georgetown, though, mostly things are fairly well looked after. Georgetown's a really good example of a place having a good balance, I would say. So I'm not specifically speaking about Georgetown when I say in some places things could be looked after more. Jump down here, head along. Well, there's some construction going along the waterside there. Like most places, the waterfront is a place of commerce, business, a lot of work going on. There's always changes happening around waterfront areas in most places where you go, and it's no exception here. In the past, the old buildings behind us would have been for administration of the harbor, the town, the island, the area, the province, so on and so on. I'm not sure what these old buildings were before over there, but let's head across here. flag of Malaysia. Interesting place to put it. Oh, there's a few of them along here. But this is the first glimpse a lot of people get when they arrive here, when they get off the ferry boat. There's an airport on Penang Island. It's quite an okay airport. I've used it before when I had a trip overland across Sumatra. I flew in from Banda Aceh, I believe it was, into Penang Island, and it took about an hour, I believe, to cross over. Well, this must be some kind of warehouse, I guess. Some kind of warehouse complex, I would assume. And up here on the corner, this is where I got off the ferry. And I believe the ferry to Langkawi from Penang Island also leaves from there, from what I've seen online. And I'm gonna check that out as well. I think probably tomorrow or the next day, check that out. That's Chetnam Pier. We'll have a look at that coming up real soon. All right. Not a good first glimpse of the island, is it, as you get off the ferry? But okay, never mind. The birds seem to be happy. I'm feeling pretty good. The weather's lovely and kind of balmy, not too hot. Very lovely temperature right now. This excellent clock tower here. I won't say British Colonial again, but I think you can see for yourself. This one I think is supposed to be a representation of a betel nut. And behind the clock tower and the sculpture, you can see what looks like a brick wall back there. I'll just run out in front of the traffic here a bit. Me and Mom always said don't run out in front of the traffic, but Mom, come on. What can you do? Oh well. Looks like a good spot to sit and pick your teeth, doesn't it? As the sun is almost setting. Yeah, this is actually an old fort. It's called Fort Cornwallis. And up here they would have had cannons. Looks like some more old warehouses here. Right here we're at a spot where there's a kind of a corner of the island. It bends around here. So over there's water, and then it curves around here, and the coast bends around here. And the fort is positioned right at the corner. So out here it's open sea, and then you come in between the island and the mainland, just behind where this orange roof is bending around there. You see there's some cranes over there. I'm not gonna go in this fort. They want, I believe, 20 ringgit. It's about, I think about €5, something like that, or $5. I think that's way too much. It's basically a brick wall. There's a few old cannons at some point, and there's, I think, a couple casemate type buildings in there, like small ones. And Malaysian ID card holders, I think they call it My Card. Maybe if you're a foreigner and you have residency you can get it, I'm not sure, but basically you can say locals pay much less than other people, meaning foreigners. And it's another example of this ridiculous double pricing, or whatever you want to call it, in Malaysia, which I think is really like shooting yourself in the foot, because who's going to pay €5 to basically see a brick wall on both sides and a couple of small ammunition storage buildings? Not me, that's for sure. I've seen plenty of amazing forts in the world. Some of them I paid probably €5 that were like huge, amazing places. Much more impressive than this little fort. And a lot of them for free as well, that were much more impressive than this. But okay, whatever. It's not always about the physical remains of something, it's about the history behind it too. Sounds like they're having a party in there tonight. I guess maybe they're spending up all that tourist money, eh? I don't know. But yeah, the history behind things, of course, adds so much to the richness, and that's why I really love to learn about places before I travel. When I was a teenager traveling around different countries, I didn't do that so much. I would just go and hit the road and travel, and I didn't know about a lot of things, and I just found out as I went along. But there were certain things I skipped or missed, didn't see, just from not knowing. And as you get more experience, you realize it's good to educate yourself about places before you travel. The Andaman Sea. Lovely fresh breeze coming in. Further down there's some more modern type buildings, some shopping centers and so on. It's a nice walk along here. You can go quite far along. There's some quite kind of nice upmarket looking areas further around there. Okay, let's take a little shortcut. Oh, maybe we'll just walk down a bit further first. We'll swing in here. There's some kind of a monument down there. So here is what we find in different places in Malaysia that were important centers in the British colonial times. A nice grassy field. Perfect for a lovely game of cricket, of course. A nice place to sit at the side of and watch a game of cricket, have a cup of tea and a cucumber sandwich. And we see there's an interesting looking building which obviously would have been important in past times. A few nice old buildings around here, and I'm sure they used it for parades and so on, drills and everything, marching around and so on. I don't know if we can cross from here, but let's try. It's a fun time to be out and around. The air is really lovely and fresh coming off the sea here. The rainy season's just come to an end. The ground is slightly soft but not muddy. Hello. 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 Hey. sun is setting behind the trees there. Shall we show them how it's done? Maybe not. Play some one-touch football. That's this slapping on the arm business about. Some funny practices, or maybe I should say unusual practices you see for fitness in Southeast Asia at times. Some of the locals have these ideas about what they think is a fit thing to do at this time in the evening. Have to say, sometimes things I see people doing, I think, is that really gonna make you fitter? This is a really cool building. I think this is the museum, but maybe I'm wrong about that. It's been a few years since I've been here. Over here. Back to Beetle Nut. Here we come. Back to the clock tower. And we're gonna swing back into, maybe that's not the museum. I'm really not sure actually, but I would like to definitely recommend the museum in Georgetown. Actually, it's very cheap. It's very good value. It has an excellent series of exhibits about the different cultures that live here in Georgetown and make it such an interesting place, you know, the history behind all of that, with ancient trade routes and so on. Of course, the trade through this region goes back as far as recorded history. It's hard to be sure exactly when traders started traveling fairly long distances throughout this region by boat from India, China, and so on, and then later from Europe, coming on through this way. And the cultures mixed here and at various important strategic trading spots along the coastline in the region here. So all up and down the coastline, up into Thailand and right down to Singapore, even along the coast of Sumatra on the other side of the Malacca Straits, there was a lot of cross-cultural pollination that happened naturally, and today there's a lot of interesting cultural mix as a result. Now we're on the street that's behind the main waterfront street, and you can see this is also part of the British colonial area. But we're going to take a turn. Not that way. So further down behind the bus you can see there are more British colonial buildings for a short distance before it merges into the edge of the Chinese district. But we're going to turn here and head on in a bit further, and it will merge into Little India. I tried to get a room in a place along here last night, and they had some kind of ridiculous system where you could only contact them through WhatsApp after booking on booking.com. And I thought, what would happen if you booked it on booking.com? Should I say the name of that website or any websites? I don't know, but okay, what would happen if you booked a room online through a booking website like that, and then they expect that you're able to be contacted on a messaging app, and if you don't use that particular messaging app, or you just don't like messaging apps, how are they supposed to tell you how to get into the place when they don't have people working on reception? It seems to be a thing now that some of these cheaper hotels don't have a reception that's open normally at all, and they just expect that you have a SIM card in your phone and a messaging app, and that after you've paid your money on your booking website that they can message you. And what if you don't have that stuff? I don't know, I think it's kind of weird and ridiculous, but I know other people will think it's weird and ridiculous to not have every messaging app in the entire world, even though there are many, and not to have a SIM card for every country you go to, and not to book everything online, and not to pay for everything with credit cards and electronically and so on. But okay, yeah, if you think like that, more power to you, but I'm about old school, and cash is king, you know, money talks. So yeah, I didn't like the way they had that set up when I arrived, so obviously I didn't hang out, and I found another place very quickly, which I'm very happy with, which was cheaper and no hassle at all. That fulfills all my requirements, which are modest requirements, you know. Don't want much, I just want a fair deal, fair shake. And I think everyone should be able to have that. Why should you have to jump through hoops? Surely if someone's supplying a service for money, it should work out that it makes the customer happy. It shouldn't be that the customer has to jump through all kinds of hoops. Anyway, that's my rant over. Some people like to say I'm grumpy about things sometimes, and maybe it's true, but I have a positive reasoning behind it. And it's basically, I think things should be done in a fair way. for everyone, everywhere. And a lot of people like to talk the talk and hide behind the fancy talk. And when it comes down to it, they're just out to serve themselves, really, and it's just empty words. And what a lot of people call fairness or justice, it's not really that at all when you look at it closely. And when you try to look closely and communicate about it and question things, you find these kinds of people are really not open to any kind of questioning of whatever. But okay, like we said before, each to their own. And if you're into having a world where everything's electronic and companies, corporations, governments know exactly every penny you spend on what and where and when, what time, and they can then figure out exactly who you're with, etc., etc. If you trust all these entities, these faceless entities, if you trust them, then that's up to you. But back to Georgetown, Penang, and here we are in Little India. Getting down with the groovy tunes. Getting jiggy in Georgetown. Nice. Some excellent food places around here. Alright, so we're gonna head on through. Time to wrap it up, and thanks everyone. I'm gonna head back to the room for a short break and then head out for some yummy, probably Indian food, or yeah, we'll see. Thanks a lot, and see you in the next one. Hitchhiking to Penang Bazaar, and about 25 kilometers away on Highway 7, and got picked up by these nice people here. Thank you so much. Thank you. Really great. So sometimes we hitchhike, a little bit of rain today, but it's looking good. Here we go.